that?
Oh God, that would be what 90 no 90 2001 maybe 2000
All right, so almost 20 years ago. Okay. All right. Hey, fans and friends, thanks for joining us here at King's Boxing. We have a very, very special guest on, uh, highly opinionated international agent, broker, consultant with 29 years of experience. I've known this man for 20 years, and you have to either love him or hate him. He is what I call the Donald Trump of boxing. Uh, it's my pleasure to welcome Rick Glaser. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Good, Marshall. Thank you for having me on this evening. And a little side note: normally I don't do a lot of the shows on podcasts and Facebook Live, when business is normal. But right now, I like to know that I had a week in advance. Know I was going to be on the show. It was exciting to wake up this morning and be useful to society today. I haven't been useful to society, so this has really helped me.
I'm glad.
Thanks for inspiring me.
I'm
Thanks for inspiring me.
I'm glad. Look, like I said, I've known Rick for 20 years, and at one point I was trying to get Rick set up to do some broadcasting for us as well. Uh, Rick has been around many, many years, and he knows a lot of things. Not everybody always agrees with him what he says, but I love hearing him talk. I love uh, seeing what his posts are, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. Uh, so I love that, and it's always great hearing and seeing Rick. Rick's been through a battle of cancer, uh, and he came out on top, and that's when I really sort of reconnected with him even more in that time, and so I really like Rick, and I'm glad that you're on the show, Rick. My partner Andrew Foy here. Andrew has a lot of great questions to ask Rick tonight, but before we get into that, Rick, what can you tell us about your career? And within 3 minutes.
Real quick, um, 29 years. Mike Akery started me in the business. Who promoted Roberto Duran, Hector Macho Camacho, Paul Spadafora. I had the luxury of working with all those fighters. And I started in 91, and then I met Ron Katz in 93. He moved me along to the next level. Then he introduced me to Bruce Trampler. I think there's his counterpart at Top Rank in Vegas. Started doing a lot of business with him, and uh, then came Don Majeski, and then came Don King, and all taking all those great boxing guys and great boxing minds, and learning a little from each. And I got as much, I learned the lessons, I kept them, and it's made me the boxing guy that I am today. And you know, I I I'm honored to be in the boxing business. I love what I do. I'm 24/7, 365 days a year. The three things that never come out of my mouth ever are, "Why are you calling me at this hour?" That I'll never say. Number one. Number two is, I'll never tell you, "Well, let me see, let me check into it, I'll let you know, let me think about it." No, no, no. It's a yes or a no immediately. Either I can do it or I can't. I don't jerk anybody around. That's not my style. I go right to a situation and can get it done, or I move on. That's just how I am. It's that way. It's the That's my modus of operandi ever since I started in boxing, and I'm
Rick, have
proud
you
of that.
always have you always been have you always lived in the Buffalo area?
Yeah, for a short time I lived in Falls Church, Virginia, and Alexandria, Virginia, in 1980, four, five, 4 and 5, 84 and 85. I was a wholesale car dealer, and we had the recession going on then. And the car dealers here were dead because all the factories were dead, and it was a blue collar town at the time. So I went to Washington D.C. because everybody worked for the government. The government wasn't laying off anybody, so everybody was buying cars. So they had trade-ins, and I was buying the trade-ins. So that's what I did for a living back then. And then I
Okay.
found boxing a few short years later in '91, and it just all took off, came together, and it took off. And what's unique about me is I fulfill services and gaps in with the bigger organizations that they can't find the fighter, they can't. They're having a beef, a dispute with the fighter, lawsuits, and I come in and try to patch things up. find guys for their guys to play. I supply sparring partners. I broker promotional deals. I bring fighters to promoters and broker promotional deals. Do all kinds of stuff like that, and I enjoy it. Every day, new challenge. I average about 16 deals a month. I love what I do. It's very simple.
I think more than, I think in all that, I think you love people. I really do. You love
Yeah,
dealing with
no,
people.
I
Let me
do.
say that for the most part.
No,
You know,
I
there's
do.
there's
I
a few of
do.
them, and
I
we'll
love
get to it. There's a few of them that you don't like, and we'll talk about that later
it.
because I had those
I'm
questions for you.
no problem. I let me just say this to you. I generally try to like people, but when they are honchfoglers and they want to screw people over or attempt to take advantage of them, that's when I turn on them. I give everybody I go into every situation liking the person I'm dealing with, and it's for you to if it's you to continue or to turn into the person that you're capable of turning into. That's how
Right,
I do business.
right. Andrew, what do you have there? I'll let you go, my partner.
All right. Well, Rick, so you know, I'm actually a doctor. I'm a cardiologist. I do research. I was a boxer as an amateur and a big fan, and kind of got back into the sport accidentally a couple years ago, and found myself doing some promotion, and decided I really didn't like doing it on my own. And so I partnered up with Marshall this summer. We had become friendly prior to that, but so you know, I have a gap in my life where I really had no involvement in boxing. And when I started paying closer attention again, I came across your Facebook and some of your postings, and I found them pretty informative, pretty entertaining a lot of the time, um, and
And controversial.
controversial. Yeah, agree, but I thought you made a lot of good points. And so, you know, one thing I wanted to just ask right from the get-go, because I think it'll be interesting to the people that tune in and follow King's Promotions. You know, we do a lot of with BBC and with Al Heyman. Marshall has a personal relationship with Al Heyman. I don't, but I certainly enjoy being involved with the events. And I know you've been pretty critical of PBC. And so I guess just I'd be interested kind of maybe you explaining to some of our viewers and the people watching, you know, what is kind of your general criticism of PBC as an organization?
Okay, first of all, Al Heyman came into the business as far as starting PBC. He was already in the business as a manager. He came in with $550 million of either what you call investment funds or borrowed money, whatever how you want to call it, but it wasn't his money. And he threw that money around foolishly, completely foolishly, and literally blew it up in 30 months. Okay, here's the $550 million, and it's not I saying that. It's what the public filings were by White L. Reed. Okay, so it's not like Rick Glaser saying that, oh, he blew up five. No, I'm not saying it. The federal filings don't lie. If you lie on a federal filing, that is a federal felony. So multiple felonies actually. So what my complaint is that he could have done great things for boxing. Instead, he screwed up the sport and the business by overpaying fighters for fighting bums. Okay, this is a fact. Okay, Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, 1980. Leonard got before the fight. The Leonard's biggest purse was $1.5 million, and with the closed circuit revenue was $2 million before that. You know, with the additional, but the guarantee was 1.5. Duran's biggest purse was $300,000 before he fought Palomino, and it was $500,000 when he fought Palomino. How did they make that fight? How did they get Duran to bypass a 140-pound fight? And he wanted to fight the best, and Leonard wanted to fight the best, and it was the biggest fight of all time up until that point. And if you take the dollars today, it would still rank up there with Pacquiao and Mayweather, but it would be more today because you know there's more electronical transmission around the world. So gross handle would be bigger today, even if you take inflation. Okay, but Here goes. They were able to make that fight because one fighter got 10 million and one fighter got 2 million. Leonard getting 10, Duran getting 2, which for Duran was 4 times as big as his purse he ever got. And for Leonard, it was 5 times as big as purse. The problem with PBC is he's overpaid these guys to fight stone garbage. Okay. Rod Sulka fighting Danny Garcia, even though that was prior to PBC, but that was a Heyman contraption, a creation. Okay. And that was so bad that what's his name? Mauricio Suleiman, I wouldn't even sanction it as a title fight. He was embarrassed. In the meantime, is you can't make fights with PBC and mega fights, okay, because of the fact that you can't give them enough more money because the revenues aren't there. Okay. So if you were giving the fighters what they were truly worth, okay, for just to fight a hobo, then they'll want to fight a guy for 4 and 5 times the amount that they'd be getting. But they're getting so much to fight hobos, there's not enough incentive to fight a real good fighter. So you got Charlo, the 60-pound Charlo Jermel fighting stiffs. You got this guy fighting hobos, that guy fighting hobos. The whole system's a joke. The system is ruined.
Let me ask you something, Rick. Do you
Hey,
think
Marshall, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm on
Oh,
call
go ahead.
and I have a page, so I'm just going to
Yeah,
mute
that's fine. Go ahead.
and let
Go
you
ahead.
guys continue, and I'll join you when I'm off the call.
What's wrong with that, Marshall? Okay, what's wrong with that is it cheapens the sport by overpaying the fighters to fight hobos, and then there's no money there to fight good fighters and make the bigger fights. Okay, and that's a fact. Everybody in the business agrees with me on that standpoint. It's not Rick Glaser standing there as a lone ranger. Everybody agrees with me on that point.
But see, here's what I see. I see that everybody's exposed to it because it's been on free TV. There's been a lot of promoters, Top Rank, you know, whoever it's been in the past, Don King, that has built up their guys fighting bums. Look at some of their records when you want to say bums. I don't see J-Rock as being a bum when he fought Charlo.
No. Let me explain this to you. Okay. That's not the issue. The issue is that they're overpaying for low-level fights, and then they can't get the fighters in the good ones because they can't pay them that much more because there's only going to be so much in revenues. That's why the sport is screwed up. That's why he screwed the sport up. Top Rank paid. If you're fighting a bum for Top Rank, you're going to get paid low money. If you're fighting a big fight, you get paid big money. That's why Aram's been able to make so many unification bouts, like the two I don't know, Pakistani, Russian, whatever those guys are, Ukrainians. The light heavyweight fight in Philadelphia back in October 18th, actually. Okay, they were able to make that unification match between 2 undefeated guys for unified title because they only pay them X amount of dollars to fight regular guys, and that's how they get him into big fights. It's worth taking a chance for that additional revenue. The additional purses. Okay. In the meantime, is Heyman's paying these guys so much money to fight hobos. There's no incentive to make the good fight.
One thing I know about Heyman is that he takes care of people, and so whether it's bad for the sport, whether it's good for the sport, as you see it, I think he makes sure that he's taking care of a lot of fighters. As you have posted already. Fighters won't even talk bad about him because he takes such good care of them.
I don't agree with you, Marshall. I'll tell you the reason why. He had 275 fighters tied up. The 35 you see on TV are the ones that talk great about him. I don't hear the other ones talking good about him. Okay. Now, do they say it publicly? No, but they'll call me up and tell me. Okay. There's plenty of those fighters. Remember something. You can't service that many fighters and do it properly. Those 35 fighters that are getting overpaid on TV, oh yeah, they're happy. Okay, they're happy. Well, let me ask you a question.
I don't want to make this whole show about Al Heyman and you, that's for sure. But we want to talk about other topics as well. I disagree with you on the Al Heyman thing, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree. Uh, I think Al's an excellent guy, and I'm sure that many others feel the same way, and some people feel the same way you do as well. So that's what this whole show is about. That's why I wanted to bring you on because I love hearing your opinion. Uh, Andrew, what else did you want to say to Rick? I know you've been following him. You
Sure.
said,
Yeah, so
Crimes against boxing, and I consider that basically a crime. Okay, what he did with 550 million is a mess.
yeah, okay. So, just a couple general questions before we get more specific questions again, but who do you think is the best promoter or promotional company today?
I think of the big ones, definitely Bob Arum would be undoubtedly the best promoter of the big ones throughout the world. When you take on all the promoters totally, including the mid-range ones, Mr. Honda, who's in the Hall of Fame, Tekken Promotions in Japan, is Bob Arum's equal, but obviously on a smaller level, a little smaller level than Arum, obviously, but he's also what I call a triple A, the Rolls Royce. It's like having a Bentley and a Rolls Royce. You want a little high performance, and you want a little more luxury. So I mean, Bob is a fabulous promoter, and so is Mr. Honda. I think those are the two best promoters in the world.
what makes them great promoters, Rick?
Well, Mr. Honda does events regularly that draw 25,000 to 40,000 people, inside a building. Okay. I mean, that would be one, pays everybody great money, pays everybody on time. Mr. Honda's had a very weird problem. Okay. And Marshall, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with what it is. He's had fighters that win world titles after 6 or 7 fights, and they're 12, 13, or 14-0 as world champ. They make 7 title defenses. They get paid so much money, and because of endorsements over there, because they're national heroes, they retire with the title undefeated, and they walk off with like lifetime endorsements instead of getting beat and then maybe losing their endorsements. So
I didn't realize that.
What's that?
I didn't realize that.
Yes, he's had a big problem with that. Yeah, it's actually a tip of his hat how good a promoter he is and how much he pays the guys. So just the way it is. It's a different market over there. Boxers in Japan and England are national heroes. Over here, half the people look at them as scoundrels.
So you're saying what makes him a good promoter is because he can put 25,000 people in the stands,
Well,
or I'm asking what makes them a good promoter?
He pays everybody well. He's a man of his word. He owes you money. You get the money within 48 hours. He'll wire it to you within 48 hours. I mean, everything he does is great. Just like Arum. I no complaints about either guy. I've done business with them all over the years. I've done business with every organization in the world practically that I know of. And when you talk to the cream of the crop, I would definitely say that Arum and Mr. Honda are definitely the cream of the crop. Not even a question.
Okay.
Rick, I wanted to piggyback on something you said. You mentioned how the fans in Europe and Asia view boxers and boxing as a sport differently than they do in the United States. And there's much more live audience. That's something that we talked about with Russell Peltz when we had him on about a month ago. What do you attribute to the decline of boxing's popularity among general fans in the US to the point where we really can't do that now, except for very, very rare events? And even in those cases, they don't usually have 25,000 people in the stands.
Well, Andrew, that's a great question. I think it's multifaceted, the answer. First of all, boxers don't have college educations, okay? And 90% of the things that come out of their mouth, you realize they're uneducated, okay? And remember, fighters are exposed at an early age to big happenings where athletes in other sports are nurtured. In other words, like minor league, like when you come out of college and minor league in baseball, NCAA baseball, you get out of high school and you go to the minor leagues. These guys don't get in the major leagues till they're 25, 26 years old. Well, they've had anywhere from 3 to 7, 8 years of minor leagues to get groomed. What's the grooming system? All of a sudden, you're in a casino in Vegas with bright lights. You're in a 4-rounder, and then 6 months later, you're in a 6. Then you're in 8, and 2 years later, you're fighting in 10-rounders, and everybody's sticking a mic in front of your face. And don't forget, you only fight boxing 3-4 times a year. Minor league baseball players play 100, I believe 140 games. I know the major leagues play 162, but I believe it's 140 games. And they have a lot. They're more groomed by the time they get to the next level. And football players, they go to college. They're just better groomed. That's the one thing. Second thing is, if fighters in other countries are looked at as national heroes and cultural icons, over here, unless they're the exceptional, incredible fighter like Mike Tyson, they're okay. Who everybody looked at the fact that about his background and how he was, because he was so exciting. But in reality, it's just not a good blend for the public. Okay, I was watching a event years ago, a NASCAR race with a
Hello.
He'll probably come back.
and we went to brunch, and we came back. We caught the last 15, 20 minutes of the NASCAR race. We watched the victory lane celebration, and everything the guy said was perfect. Okay, the driver was perfect. Everything came out of his mouth, and we had watched the fights on HBO the night before. My then girlfriend and I, years ago, and she said, "What a difference between last night and today." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Listen to him, that guy last night that won that fight. He sounded, it was awful. It was disgusting. Didn't even sound like a human being. And here today, the guy sounds like he just came out of Harvard." So that just tells you a lot about our sport right there, and that's a sad thing. I also think the other thing is we don't make the best fights all the time, and I think that hurts it. Every time we have a great fight, we get a great crowd, but we don't do that consistently enough to draw the people. Whether it's a local fight, a regional fight, a national fight, or a world fight, we don't do that enough. Okay.
I have seen you post some good stuff recently about PBC making some great fights.
Listen, 1 out of 20 fights they do are great. Look at the percentage. Okay, I mean it's 5%. Your fights overall are not good. Okay, Marshall. A blind man catches a squirrel. A chestnut once in a while. Come on. Okay, it happens. Sometimes as I joke, the PBC put on a great fight. It was totally by accident. It just happened to turn out good. It wasn't by design. Okay, because some fights going in, as a matchmaker and a career boxing guy, I know a good fight when I see it. Most of the time you say that's going to be a bad fight. Once in a blue moon, it comes up to a good fight. Geez, it was done by accident, because they sure didn't plan it to be a good fight, because they don't really have any great boxing guys that are around PBC. The best one is Louis DeCubas Jr., and he's a 30-year-old kid yet, so he's not bad. But the rest of them leave a lot to be desired.
Okay. As you know, it takes an art. There's an art to it. Based on what you just said about Louis, who would you say is the best matchmaker in the business?
Brad Goodman.
And why?
Consistently, he's made 55 champions already. He started in January of 2004. He's already made 55 champs. He puts on big volume of the shows. The fights are good. They're respectable. Even the undercard, once in a while, he gets a clunker in a 4 or 6 round fight where, a guy goes out with one shot. But, that's what happens when you have a lot of prospects and you sign guys because they can punch. So that'll happen. But overall, Brad's the best matchmaker, no question. It's not even, I'm not saying Bruce, his boss, who's in the Hall of Fame, but Bruce is like the senior advisor now. Brad's doing the matchmaking now.
Now, I'm going to agree with you that Brad is the best matchmaker in business. But
Well,
don't you think that Brad has a job to protect the fighters as well? To put them in
absolutely.
safer fights where they're going to win because of the investment?
Absolutely. Absolutely, but he always looks for guys with good chins and that throw punches back and give 100% of themselves. Because I know, because I'm putting some of those fighters in, and he says I don't want any lay downs. He'll give me the rules. You know, every time I talk to him, no lay downs. I want a guy with a good chin, guy comes to give 100% of himself, that'll leave his best in the ring. You know, all that kind of stuff.
So Brad's great at moving guys, and he's great at building them to become world champions.
Yes, but at the same time, as he puts them in challenging fights along the way. Okay, I mean, quite a bit, because he'll say to me, Rick, I want to test this kid. He's now 12-0. I've given him 11 regular guys. I want a good step up fight. Bring me the best guy you can at 140 for this guy that TV will buy. Blah blah. You know, the TV will accept. You know, stuff like that. So he moves them along periodically like you're supposed to. His timing is excellent. He knows what he's looking for. You know, I mean, he'll fight southpaws with his guys, but he doesn't want anybody runs around the ring either. So as long as they fight like a Michael Moore type southpaw rather than a Pernell Whitaker southpaw, then he'll take a southpaw. So he knows what he's doing. There's no question. I have a great relationship with Brad because we think alike, and I understand what he's looking for. So he gives me the speech, just that normal speech, just because that's Brad. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to forget that he's Brad every day.
Well, Brad's very good at building his fighter, and teaching and allowing them to learn on the job, without a doubt. But you don't always see you don't always see the best fights because of that reason sometimes, until they get to the upper echelon.
Well, put it this way to you. If you're asking about 4-round and 6-round and 8-round fights on the app, when you get to the 8-round level, they're normally pretty good. Okay. And when you get to the 10 and 12-round level, they're very good. That's how I look at it. That's how it's supposed to be, by the way.
I am glad that you also spoke on when you've seen some fights that were on ESPN that they weren't so good either. So I'm glad that you didn't just, ride the roller coaster with them.
I always listen. I'm a straightforward guy. I always tell the truth. I never tell lies. I was in the used car business, wholesale used car business. That was a business full of lies. You know,
right.
So when I got in boxing, I left that behind me, and I'm a straight up guy. I mean, when I talk to people, I hope to believe that they know it's the truth.
Would you say that there's more talented fighters that Top Rank has than what PBC has?
No, I wouldn't. I would say the top level fighters at Top Rank are better overall, but the PBC's got more prospects, better prospects in Top Rank. Top Rank's got a lot of good prospects, but PBC's got more of them. But let me just give you a statistical fact, okay? Including February 22nd. Al Heyman, 2 winners, Arum 14 head-to-head. 16 fights they've had head-to-head over the years. And Arum's fighters have beat him 12 out of 16 times. 12 and 14. 2 and 14.
12 and 4. Who were those 4? Who are those 4?
What 4 are you talking about? Two.
That one. You said 4 out. You said 4 out of 16 times.
No. 2 out of 16 times. Heyman's had 2 winners and 14 losers.
And who were the 2 winners?
Well, Top Rank's got a running list. One of the guys that won was Sebastian Fondor beat that Daniel Lewis, but Top Rank knew that was going to happen. Okay, they didn't really. Lewis wasn't panning out, and then I can't remember, it was a fight a while back, but Heyman's won 2 fights and Arum's won 14. Gary Russell getting beat by Lomachenko, Fury getting
Mayweather over Pacquiao.
What's that?
Mayweather over Pacquiao.
That was the other one. Correct. That was the other one. That was the Fondora and Mayweather over Pacquiao. Correct.
Right.
I put it this way to you: when there was that much money spread around for one fight, nobody lost. There was no loser.
Right. And nobody
Somebody-
lost. Nobody lost with Fury and Wilder either.
What's that?
Nobody lost with the Fury and Wilder fight either.
Right, exactly.
That was a huge success for them, and
Right.
and so we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot more of them working together.
We'll see.
What else we got, Andrew?
I'd like to know what fights are you looking forward to the most when boxing returns, or what fights would you like to see made?
Every fight I was looking forward to got canceled or postponed so far. I was looking forward to Lomachenko and the Teofimo Lopez. I was looking forward to Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. You know, I was looking forward to Fury and you know, Wilder to get, you know, just to move on to a Joshua fight. We would have been looking forward to Joshua and Fury, but you know, we're going to be way behind here. I mean, I don't see how they can make Wilder and I'm sorry, Fury and Wilder this year, the fight number 3. That's going to be next year. If you ask me when that fight's going to be right now, I'm going to tell you it's going to be next February.
Why do
I
you
don't
think
think
that?
Well, there's going to be no crowds, live crowds. They get $17 million gate. I don't think they can do. If they did it this year, there probably won't be any live gates allowed this year. We're going to be in a recession at least through the end of this year. At least, I don't know. They say 18 months, 2 years. Last time we were in recession was 4 years, 2008 to 2012. But you know, spending $80, $90 on pay-per-view in a recession is not exactly a big seller amongst people's wives. Okay, you know, do you really have to watch that? You can't wait till a couple days or catch it on YouTube or something like that. You know, it's going to be pretty tough. And with social distancing now, there's going to be another issue, because if 10 people went to somebody's house and everybody put in $10, something like that, and you know, somebody brought the wings, somebody brought the pizza, somebody brought the beer, and somebody brought the cigars, that isn't happening right now either, and probably not till next year. So there's a lot of reasons, Andrew, that those fights won't happen right now. Certain fights can happen without a crowd and without the sponsorships. So there's without the Southwest Airlines and without the beer and liquor sponsors. Like give you an example, like Andrew Maloney, WBA 115-pound champ, him and Kajas, the IBF Top Ranks, got both guys that are both 115-pound champ. They'll fight because they'll both bring foreign TV money in from their country, once from Australia and once from the Philippines, ESPN app money, and they can make that fight with no crowd. But you can't put the big fights on Teofimo Lopez versus Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez. You can't put Wilder Fury. You couldn't put Spence and Crawford. You couldn't put any of those fights on. So you're going to see a lot of big fights, but they're going to be the small guys.
Fights that aren't as meaningful.
Yeah, big fights being meaningful, right? Unification bouts between 15, 18, 22 pounders, 26 pounders. But when you get to guys that are like real popular and high buck, like Lomachenko and Teofimo, doesn't matter what weight they are, they're just real popular and they're going to command big money, millions per person, per I would say.
Agree. Andrew, you got some questions there?
Yeah, this gets to, I guess, some of the points you were making earlier about the difference in the quality of fights between the promotional companies. And I just wanted to ask you, who would you consider the 5 best fights of last year?
I can't remember which ones were last year and which ones were you know, in 2018 anymore, but I know Top Ranks fight had to be with that light heavyweight bout. Gosev and
Biev or something.
That had to be one of the top fights of the year. You know, there was many of them. You know, all the organizations had a couple good fights last year. Nobody really had any more than that. You know, each one had a couple. I don't see where any of them were, you know, that great that in volume. In other words, I don't think it wasn't like 10 or 12 to 1 over somebody else. They all had a few good fights, no question about it. I mean, you know, Mr. Honda over in Japan, he had a couple good fights. Frank Warren had a couple good fights with with Josh Warrington before he left and went with Eddie Hearn. You know, there was a lot of good fights around the world last year amongst all the promoters. I don't think there was one promoter that dominated in that area.
Yeah, kind of related, but in the major divisions in boxing, who do you consider to be the best fighter in each division? So let's just say like featherweight, lightweight, welterweight.
Let me go from top to bottom, and
Sure.
let's leave the cruiserweight division out because that's an international division, and all the people dominating that are really Africans and Russians. Okay, so let's just go with we'll call heavyweight. I think Fury's the best heavyweight right now. I think the best light heavyweight is obviously Turbiev. Biberev, how do you pronounce his name? Turbiev. I think the best super middleweight is Canelo. No question. I think the best middleweight is Canelo. I think the best junior middleweight is probably Charlo, I would think. Okay, off the top of my head, it's Charlo. I think Crawford is the far superior fighter at 147. 140, I would say it's a toss up between Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez, and they're going to end up fighting. They're both the top ranked, so they're going to end up fighting. I would definitely say those two are by far the best. I couldn't flip a coin and come up with a winner there. I couldn't. That's going to be a tough fight. Who's ever shows, can Taylor weather those storms that Ramirez comes up with, and that's going to be a grueling fight. Okay. 135 right now today. If I had to pick a winner, Lomachenko, but they're all good. That's a great weight class. Devin Haney, even though he won his belt, like they're saying in email style, he's a legit fighter. Teofimo Lopez, great knockout to grab the title. Young guy. Ryan Garcia moving up into that elite class of fighters now, fighting better fighters. Gervonta Davis, he's very, even though he's a champ, he's a big underachiever. I mean, you can be a two-time champion at his age and still be an underachiever, and he's the guy, no question about it. He's definitely an underachiever. But he needs a life coach. He needs a strength and condition coach, a diet technician. He doesn't live right. And he needs like a mentor, life coach type of person. Okay, no question about it. I mean, I know who I'd pick if that was my choosing. I know who I would get if I was Leonard Ellerbe and Floyd Mayweather. I know who I would get as his life coach. So that's up to them if they don't have one. It's a shame they don't, because I think the promotional company should even pay for it, because I think he would improve so much as a human being and as a fighter.
Fair enough.
Marshall, where'd you go?
I'm here. Featherweight. He said, who is featherweight?
Oh, going down featherweight. I don't know. That Mike Colbert looks like a good up and comer. I don't know. To me, Josh Warrington's good. There's a whole bunch of guys that are capable in that division. Shakur Stevenson looks like the cream of the crop, but I think he's going to grow out of that 126 and go up to 30 like very quickly.
Yeah, Shakur is very good. What are your thoughts? I'm moving back up to 168. I mean, I know you gave Canelo 60 and 68, but what are your thoughts on Caleb Plant?
He's not in that league right now. If with 3 or 4 title defenses, he'd be a much better fighter, and I don't think he's ready for those kind of fights yet. He's close, but I think he's 4 fights away from those type of fights as far as being able to hang with a guy like Canelo.
Right.
Canelo's a different animal.
No, I agree. Canelo's a beast. I mean, I agree. And what about Benavidez?
He's a beast. But you know what? He's all offense, And I don't think it's a funny thing. His offense is so good, we haven't seen his defensive flaws yet. And I don't like how he holds his hand sometimes. I don't like how he's lazy sometimes. He pulls back on his punches. When he pulls back with his chin down, and better fighters will expose him. Okay, but so far he looks very good, but he's also very young. He's what,
Yeah,
21, 22
yeah,
years old.
he's a baby. Yeah,
He's a baby. So he's another guy that's 3 years away from being in those type of fights. If anybody puts Plant in those type of fights right now, or Benavides, they're rushing the fighter.
gotcha. What else you got there, Andrew? I got. We just asked that. I got one for you, Rick. Who would you consider as the best trainer in boxing?
I think there's a group of really good trainers right now. There's a small group. Is Robert Garcia, myself, I really like. Eddie Reynoso, obviously, even though I've never seen Eddie work in the gym, I've seen Robert work in the gym, but obviously, Ryan Garcia improved more in just those few fights he's been with Eddie Reynoso, so he must be an excellent trainer. And Canelo keeps getting better every fight.
Correct.
Okay.
And now Andy Ruiz is with him as well.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And he's got a bunch of other good fighters too. Frankie Sanchez, there's a decent fighter, Frank Sanchez. So he's a great trainer. It looks like Robert Garcia is excellent. Joel Diaz from India. That Joel Diaz. There's a couple Joel Diaz's. People get confused. That Joel Diaz. And then I would say those are like I would say those three guys are the cream of the crop. I think the next level down is Freddie Roach, Evil Sanchez, and those guys. But I think those three guys are the cream of the crop.
Here's a question in regards to Top Rank. I mean, I know you're very high on them. I am too. All right. How do you think Top Rank will succeed once Arum is gone?
Well, I'll answer that question and the way I've told that everybody in every podcast, every reporter has ever interviewed me. They've got 7 executives there. Okay. They've got Lee Samuels, Bruce Trampler. They're both in the Hall of Fame. They have Harrison Whitman, the in-house attorney. They've got Carl Moretti. They've got Brad Jacobs. They got Todd DeBuff. I don't think they're going to lose a step, to be perfectly frank with you. They got too many people, and Brad Goodman, of course. They've got too many people that are tops, that are top executives. There's no reason why they would lose a step. Don't forget, Arum's got a 7-year deal. Yes, that's got. Hold on. What happened here?
You gotta hit your camera. Hit the little video camera on the screen.
There is no screen.
On your phone, yeah, there should be a screen there. The screen that there's a screen there that you have to hit your video camera because there's there's a line going through it.
Hold on. Okay. Hello?
We have audio, we just don't have picture.
I don't know. I don't know how to do this.
That's all right. You're learning, Rick. It's okay. I think you're back. There you go. You're back. Good.
Yeah, there you go.
You're back.
Okay. So what they've got a lot of executives there, and he's got a 7-year deal. He's got like 5 years to go, and and ESPN has an option at that point in time. They've got that serious film library. Disney loves that. Disney owns ESPN. They love that film library that they have. And it's going to be hard for anybody else to get in there just because of the film library.
Right. Gotcha. So they'll be doing okay. Well, we got about 5 minutes. We got about 5 minutes left on our thing here. 7 minutes. What do you got there, Andrew?
Well, we got a question from somebody who's watching Charlie Anzalone. I get the impression he's a buddy of yours, but he asked, what state do you think has the best boxing commission and why?
I used to, when Mark Ratner ran the commission in Vegas, and then Keith Kaiser, I used to say Nevada had at that time, but I would say no longer. I would probably say California probably has the best boxing commission now. Yes, I do know Charlie. He's from my hometown. He worked for the Nevada Commission for 18 years as an inspector for the boxing commission.
California is very good. I still like PA.
Greg Serb as an individual is a great commissioner, but it's a funny thing. I don't think they have a lot of great officials. I have a problem with that.
Greg is by far, he has the most boxing knowledge as well.
No. He's a great, no. Yeah, I think that there's a difference. He's a great commissioner. He's probably the best commissioner, but as a whole commission, his officials are not the best. That's for sure.
Okay.
I want to ask a question, just kind of a theoretical question. Obviously, you're involved with a lot of boxers as an advisor and at all different levels. What do you look for in a fighter in general that makes you want to get involved with them? I mean, obviously, when we do this as promoters, managers, everything, we develop personal relationships with people. Sometimes they're great, and other times we really get let down a lot. So what do you look for in somebody outside of their fighting qualities that makes you want to get involved with them?
Andrew, I'll tell you what that is. I'll get on the phone with them. Okay, they'll call me up and they'll pull me up. I'll be on the other line and say, listen, I can't take your call right now. Call me back in exactly a half hour. If that fighter calls you back in exactly a half hour, that means he's not dysfunctional normally. But most of the time they don't call back on time. So now I know what I'm dealing with. So that's a real telltale sign.
You ever get involved with people that you think are a little dysfunctional if the talent is there? Does it always kind of come back to bite you in the end?
Well, it depends what my role is. In other words, my 99% of the time, my role is subordinate to somebody else. There's a manager, there's a promoter, there's a money guy, and I get a piece of it and stuff like that. And I, bark directions, and I'm not dealing with the fighter every day. So under those situations, I do get involved with fighters that are dysfunctional. But if I'm going to have to do business with the fighter directly, where he's got no manager, no regular promoter, or something like that, well, I've got to deal with this guy. This guy better be an A1 citizen, because I don't need any bullshit at age 62. Okay, it's just the way I am.
You work with a number of very good managers in the business. One of them who I know very well, and Keith Conley.
Right.
And so, that evidently, when you have guys of that level, they think they must think highly of you, and they know that you do a good job.
Well, thank you, Marshall, for saying that. Yes, most people tell me that I always do a good job. I mean, I don't really lose clients, so I must be doing something right. But I don't really, I never want to, Andrew and Marshall, I don't like being the lead guy with a fighter, because then I have to devote too much time. And then my core business is supplying services around the world, and you lose traction with your core customers, which are promoters who we've been doing business with for 20 and 30 years, and 10 and 20 years, if they're still alive, I'll be still doing business with them, where the fighters come and go. So I like to take a piece and turn them over to a manager who will deal with all the issues that the fighters deal with. And that's why I like brokering deals and making deals more than handling fighters.
All right. Give us a real quick 3 fighters that you worked with that you were very excited about and went on to fight for a world championship. I know of, one in particular. Why don't you tell people who don't know?
Well, Paul Spadafora, Mike Aker and I brought him along from his first pro fight on. He went from selling tickets to be on a show and getting a $400 purse to becoming lightweight champ of the world. Didn't lose a fight until after he was with us at age 38 and finished up 49-1-1. It was 10-0-1 in title, I believe 10-0-1 in title defenses. So I believe that would definitely be one of them. I enjoyed my relationship being around Roberto Duran because he was my first fighter that I worked with from 92 to 97 as the matchmaker for Mike Akery. So that was exciting. And then, Billy Irwin, I had 2 shots at the apple with Billy Irwin, 2 world title shots, and we didn't make it either time. But it was very gratifying because he's a great guy. He's a Canadian Olympian. He's a pillar of his community up there, and he only lives 16 miles from me, so it made it easy. And, I was proud of the things. I made him #1 contender.
Didn't you had Billy Irwin with Russell Peltz too, right? Did you and Russell have them together?
That's a long story. That's a long story. We got into a legal hassle, and I threatened to sue Russell, and he paid me out of court. Billy paid me. Billy, Russell stole the fighter. It was a mess, but it worked out that when push came to shove, I was the promoter. Russell was supposed to be my partner. Then Russell stole the fighter. That at that point, I didn't know Russell anything but a lawsuit. But Russell was smart enough to settle out of court.
Well, that was good. The last question that I have, do you have any more, Andrew? Because we have to close soon.
I got a few more, but we can leave them for another time.
Well, I'll let you ask them after I ask this one, because I really like this question. I stole it from someone else. If there was anyone in the boxing business, Rick, that you could slap, punch, or kick, who would it be? And they can't return the favor.
Okay, put it this way to you. Ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody thinks I hate Al Heyman. I don't hate Al Heyman. It's not a personal thing. It's about how he conducts business, how he has conducted business and continues to do so. That's my problem. It's not a personal hate about Al Heyman. People get the wrong impression there. Okay, the one person I hate truly in the boxing business, you know who it is, is that scum sucking pig, Lou DiBella.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what I wanted to hear. So if you had a chance, what would you do? Punch him, slap him, or kick him?
You know what? I'd rather verbally abuse him in front of everybody because he's such a scoundrel and he's such a hypocrite. He's a phony bastard. He's a hypocrite. And I don't like hypocrites. I speak the truth. Anything that comes out of my mouth is the truth. It's straightforward. There's no sugarcoating. I'm not diplomatic. I don't give a shit. It's me. But this is a man that was supposed to be my friend. I make a deal for him. I'm supposed to get a $7,500, and he completely fucks me. Guess what, guys? That's not a friend. That's a lowlife. Okay, and that's what he is. Andrew,
you got something else you want to ask him? Then I'll close this out.
Yeah, mine's not going to be that entertaining, but being somebody that works, as you said, you fill gaps in a lot of ways for boxing companies, and so you work with a lot of managers. So, coming into the sport fairly recently, my understanding of what a manager is has really evolved, and I see some things that make guys really good managers, but I see too many people that are really just trying to get a guy to sign with them and get their 30%. And they're really bad for the fighters and also for the sport. So in your opinion, and I'm sure that can be said about all kind of various people, this isn't a swipe at managers. In your opinion, what makes somebody a good manager?
A good manager, it knows enough to listen to the promoter. If the fighter signed up with a promoter, that he's smart enough to listen to the real boxing guy, which is the matchmaker. If this was the mafia, the boss would be the promoter, okay? Another corporate officer would be the underboss, and the matchmaker is the consigliere. He's the advisor, okay? And that's what it is. And if you're not listening to the matchmaker, and the matchmaker's telling you, no, we're not ready for this, or yes, your guy's ready for this, and you're not listening, you're not a good manager. Okay, because you have to, when you're a manager, you have to be able to rely on somebody that's more tuned than you are, and that's why he's the matchmaker. because he's more tuned than you are. Remember this: out of 100 managers, maybe 5 of them in the business as true professionals, the Shelley Finkles of the world, okay, those kind of guys. The rest of them, they're all doing something else for a living. They're a lawyer, they're a doctor, they're doing something else. They're not you know, and a matchmaker lives and breathes this. You know, all these matchmakers right now, Marshall will tell you this, they're all playing on Zoom, they're all playing Boxing Jeopardy with all these historic questions. I believe Marshall is on it himself. And maybe you were too, Andrew. Is that correct? So
No, I wasn't, but I know what
okay,
you're talking about.
right. So you know, those are guys that are diehard boxing guys and matchmakers and mid-level promoters at double, like Russell Peltz, even though he's promoted at a high level, but he's not Bob Arum. He's a Hall of Famer, but he's also doubles as a matchmaker. Those guys are diehard guys, and that's what it's all about. Okay, and that's what matchmaking is 24/7, 365 days a year. If you don't have that kind of attitude, then you might as well 10 bar, okay, at your local strip joint for entertainment.
What I got, Marshall. What do you got to finish?
Great. Well, you know, I'm going to close this out. Rick, it was a pleasure. As everybody who tuned in, you can see that he is the Donald Trump of boxing. You know, 100%. Always has something good to say, whether you believe it or not. So it's always interesting. Rick, I appreciate you being on, taking the time to come on with us.
My Twitter handle.
Yeah, give us your Twitter handle.
It's at Real Rick Glaser 1. At Real Rick Glaser 1. And if you look on my profile, I came on in January of 2020, just a few months ago. So that's me. All the other ones are parody accounts and knockoffs, whatever you want to call it.
So if you need a broker, if you need a manager, if you need just advice, you know where to reach Rick at. Okay, reach out to him. Rick always loves to get on the phone and he'll chat with you, and he'll give you all the time that you need if he feels like it's worth it. Rick, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And
gentlemen, Andrew, looking forward to meeting you in person. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on the show. And Marshall, it's always a pleasure. And anything that you partake in is always on a first class level. Thank you for having me.
Rick. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Marshall, let's stay on and mention our guest for next week.
Oh, yes. How about that? All right, let's talk about that. Our guest for next week. Excited. These two guys are probably the biggest ticket sellers that King's Promotions has, but they can also fight. So we got Greg Outlaw from Maryland, who's going to be on next week. Greg has been off for a year because of a ACL tear that he had in his knee. And then we have Jonathan Rodriguez, who is one of Andrew's favorite fighters as well. Andrew's got to see him fight. He never got to see Greg Outlaw fight. So it's going to be a great show next week. You know, both guys are 8-0. Matter of fact, I think they have the same KO percentage with 4. So it's going to be great. You know, Jonathan Rodriguez fights at 118. Greg Outlaw fights at 140. So I'm looking forward to the outcome for next week.
So that's Thursday, not next week.
Not next week. You're right. I'm sorry.
That's this Thursday. And then Monday next week, we have a guy who calls himself the Don of Philly boxing, Lando Rosa. He's manager, owner of Pivot Boxing Academy. Should be very entertaining. Lando has a big stable of fighters. He's a great boxing guy. And he can also be outspoken, just like our guest tonight.
Exactly.
And do we have next Thursday set yet, Marshall, or are you waiting to make a special announcement on that one?
I'm waiting for a special announcement for that, but we will have that this Thursday for sure.
All right.
By Thursday, we'll know who it is. And hey, look, anyone joining in, if you can recommend someone that wants to get on, we're open to it. I mean, what the heck? We had Rick Glaser on the show, right? So if we had Rick on, we're open to whoever it may be. But no, Rick was an interesting guest. And so it was good, and we appreciate everybody that tuned in. Uh, we're not looking to just pick certain people. We're open. This is an open mic, and so if you can take it, we're going to give it. So hey, once again, thank you, Andrew. Close us out, and we'll talk later.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on Thursday night at 7 o'clock with John
Thank you.
Rodriguez and Greg Outlaw. Thanks.